Hi, everybody. I'm Annette, and I teach English language arts, and it's a running joke that I got a degree in music, and I find myself teaching English. But really and truly, genealogy is the marriage of the history and the writing and the reading that I truly love. So I guess thank you for the awesome introduction. I try not to have a large ego by the end of this. So. I hope that by the end of this, you guys you will feel more comfortable with understanding what DNA is, how you can use it, and this is just a quick overview. I tried to get it in under 20 minutes. So, let's go ahead and get started. Is everybody seeing just that one screen? Carla, is that what you see right now? Just the one screen? Okay, great. So what we'll do is today, you're going to understand all the hype that surrounds DNA, and it will help you get started with how to use those DNA matches that you've probably seen or heard about. This should take only about 20 minutes, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have after the meeting. So like Jenny said, my name is Annette Graham, and I am a professional genealogist. I do specialize in DNA, and I use it to help break down brick walls. I've helped many adoptees find their birth families, identifying unknown relationships that appear through DNA. And my full-time job is an ELA teacher here in Northside, and I teach 7th and 8th grade. I am the past president of the San Antonio Genealogical and Historical Society, and I'm the DNA expert that meets with people on those first and second Saturdays with those one-on-one consultations. So as we start, it is really important to understand that DNA does not lie. It determines our hair color, what gender we are, our eyes, how we walk, even our talents and our interests, down to our allergies and our natural aversions. These are all things that we've inherited from our parents. We get 50% of each of our parents. Now, we will inherit a random assortment of those traits, qualities, and more from each of our parents. Your assortment is uniquely you, and your siblings will get an entirely different assortment of that 50% from the parents you both share. So here's an overview about DNA and genealogy. Being a good genealogist means you work backward from what you know toward what you don't. DNA doesn't work well by itself, at least when we are working from that genealogical approach. But paired with good old-fashioned research and documentation, DNA can reveal previously unknown details about and even reveal new lineages. Genetic genealogy builds upon well-documented and confirmed research. Using primary sources, these are those sources and records that are immediate first-hand accounts of a topic from those people who had direct connection with it, will help to establish a line that will stand the test of time. DNA combined with traditional trees and research can point us in directions that we might not have considered, but it also forces us to recognize that long-held assumptions might also be incorrect. Now, what DNA is not is that it cannot automatically produce your family pedigree. Think of it as yet another document or source of evidence. It is always 100% accurate for any of those close relationships. Your parents will always appear as a parent in your matches if they've tested, as will your full sibling or even your child. This is because they definitely share that DNA with you. Conversely, if someone does not share DNA with you, they will not appear in your match list. Only people who have tested will appear in the match list. While DNA can prove a line of descent, it can also disprove that lines that families have long believed to be true. It is important to be prepared for any possible scenario. Now, a guiding thought or two. A well-known genealogist, many of you may have heard Judy G. Russell, has said both of these things at different conferences that I have attended. You may have already uncovered some surprises or a few scandals in your own research. With the inclusion of DNA into genealogy research, it opens a greater possibility of revealing closely guarded secrets or unwelcome skeletons in our family closets. There have been a few cases of incest or crimes, unknown identities, or even the now well-known non-parental events. As we do our own researches and discover these things, we must remember that we become the keeper of secrets. We must remember to do no harm. This means that you must decide if it's prudent to reveal those new findings or if it will do more harm than good. Telling someone that their lifelong research of their family is for nothing because the person they always believed was their parent or their grandparent is not, is a good example of exercising patience and compassion. Some people are able to hear this, but many are not, especially not in their autumn years. NPEs or non-parental events can completely shake a person's self-identity. We cannot go into this with only the pursuit of truth as our rule. We must consider all individuals who will be impacted by our revelations and how this could affect them. Now, with that said, I'm going to show you how to identify some of those matches in your DNA match results and how they might fit into your genetic family tree. Now, some of these strategies have been streamlined and condensed as much as I could for the sake of time. And I utilize all databases and tools available, but this is going to focus mostly on Ancestry DNA. There's additional methods I use, but I can't go into all of them today, and I'll be happy to explain after the presentation or if you'd like to talk about it later. Now, consider this statement. Don't believe everything the old relatives tell you, no matter how sure they are. Now, when we work with genealogy, we kind of know this to be true. With the DNA becoming standard in our sources, many of us are learning that these tall tales sometimes really aren't true. Now, we must understand also that as a science, it's still in its infancy. The results are only as good as the database participants. The result of a genealogy test does not include that family tree, but it cannot tell you what village your grandparents came from, but it can help you narrow down where to look. Now, this is my warning slide. It has always been included with my talks since I first started presenting. It does come with a word of caution. Some testers have found out through testing that a relative was adopted, or a parent's not entirely truthful, or some other uncomfortable surprise. Be aware that this could happen to you, to someone you've tested, or someone who is also tested and matches your DNA. This was my surprise. I had my own surprise about 2 years ago on 23andMe, and I discovered I had an older half-sister. After nearly 70 emails with my half-niece, who appeared as a predicted first cousin, and a very awkward conversation with my dad and my mom, who was on speakerphone, it was revealed that during his Marine Corps basic time had produced a daughter that he had never been told about. Congratulations, Dad, it's a girl. This was when we finally got to meet in 2018 in Pensacola, where I'm from, about 6 months after I first told my dad about his new daughter. I will quickly address the topic of ethnicity estimates. These are really fun, and I call them DNA eye candy. It's why most people get their DNA, and really that's all about it. Many people dismiss the accuracy of DNA tests because siblings have stark differences in their ethnicity estimates. But this is because we do not inherit the same DNA as our siblings. But it's also why we don't look alike. This is me with my two sisters. My younger full sister is there on the left, Jennifer, and my older half sister, Jenny, is on the right. You can see we resemble each other, but we're not carbon copies. Again, this is my me with my younger sister, and way back in the 70s, me and my younger little sister and my mom and dad. Now let's go into the good stuff. There are 3 things I'd like you to know concerning DNA. The first is inheritance, and we touched on that briefly. How do you get all that makes you, you? You get 50% from your dad and 50% from your mother. That 50% is a random assortment from each parent. My favorite analogy is to think of it like genetic inheritance is like that old-fashioned bubble gum machine. All of those colors of gumballs are those that go into those machines, and how we don't know which color gumball we get when we put our coin into that slot. DNA inheritance is a little like that, random and different for each person, and it's what makes us all unique. Now, on the left side of this image is the biological father. You'll get half of your father's genetic makeup. Now, and on the right, you'll get about half of your biological mother's genes. Now, what combines makes up a brand new gumball and makes you 100% you. Secondly, I'd like to mention how to identify those matches in your match list. Just who are all of these people to you? A good practice when you get your DNA matches is to start sorting them out. This has helped me solve several brick walls and saved me countless time when a new match arrives in my match list. Many people can easily identify those close family. Use those to color code and add notes to those surnames you will see pop up in the shared matches trees. Just like you do with your tree work, do the same with your DNA. Start with what you know and then sort out the ones that you don't. Targeted testing will also help tremendously when working with identifying ancestors several generations back. Targeted testing is when you identify specific descendants of a common ancestor to test. Shared matches is how you solve most of your DNA puzzles. Now, sorting socks is what I call sorting my matches. It's my least favorite part of doing laundry and putting away clothes. I have to figure out where they go, where the heck my other partner's sock is, and then put them all back together. Then there are the random socks that you have to hold to the side until you figure out just where they came from. Labeling your DNA matches is just like this. To do this, start with your highest match that you know and how you relate, and then work down that list. There are additional tools that you can use to help you identify the matches, including those color-coded dots and notes. These things are only viewable to you, but not to anybody else who can view their match to you. The DNA match list are only those people who match you, and they will not necessarily match each other. Now, this is a peek of my DNA list. Now, sorting out those matches is as important as any other part of your genealogy research. You have to determine which grandparent, or which surname you connect to each match in order for you to be able to place them in your tree. Now, my mom is at the top. The next one down is my son, and then my father is right there. Now, at the top, we're going to look at my mother. She shares 3,467 centimorgans over 27 segments with me. Centimorgans, or CMS, are those units of measurement that tell us how much DNA we share with that person. The segments think of them like slices of pie or combined chunks of connected DNA. We have over 22 chromosomes that can make up our DNA, and it's all over our DNA, that those centimorgans can be found. When we find large segments of shared DNA, we know that we have a good probability of a shared genetic ancestor. Now, obviously, I will match my parents with lots of those centimorgans and segments. On average, you will have about 3,500 centimorgans with each parent. The next column is where you'll see if they have a tree attached or not, if it's private, or if you have a common ancestor, which we call that shaky leaf hint. The last column is what I call sorting my socks, or color coding those surnames. Ancestry has up to 24 different color dots that you can label in any way you like. You can sort them by label or location, shared name, surname, ethnicity, or whatever works for your specific research. I use these exclusively for surnames because that makes the most sense to me. Now, there are several different sorting abilities on the top bar, but sorting out and identifying your individual matches is key to your success. Now, this is a peek at those labels. This is really my favorite function on Ancestry. It can be tedious and boring, but it pays off dividends later. As new matches show up, you can quickly and efficiently identify where they fit. And I've already filled up all of my colors, but that's okay because I know where all these people go now. As I further refine my groups, I can go back and edit those colors, delete them entirely, or change them to include the maiden name of the partner. If you're fortunate enough to have tested a parent, Ancestry also automatically groups those that you share DNA with to the parent side of of the parent that you also match with. Now, shared matches, I've talked about that a lot. This is where it's kind of like the magic happens. Start with someone how to identify that match. Start with you and then someone how you match on a specific line. For example, start with a first cousin or maybe your aunt or your uncle. You already know how that you match them by descendancy via your specific closest ancestor. The shared matches that you and your best match or your aunt, uncle, or cousin must also share that common ancestor. This is a view of my mom's DNA matches. Now from the top, that's me. And then right below her is my aunt, which is my mom's sister. And then right below her is my aunt's daughter, which is another aunt who my Aunt Bobby passed away in 1982. So she tested. So I would have that line. Then there's another person we did not know. You can see how Ancestry has already categorized and predicted the relationship. I'm listed as my mother's child. My aunt is listed as her sister. And my cousin, who is my mom's niece, is listed as close family. Now, keep in mind, this is an umbrella term for anybody who falls within a certain range, centimorgan range. That is typically an aunt, uncle, niece, or nephew, or even grandparents or grandchild. It's not, and even first cousin. Please note that Ancestry does not have a category yet for half siblings or those kind of relationships. These commonly fall under that first cousin or close family because of that high number of centimorgans. Now, I've already labeled all of these matches with several dots, and you can look at the bottom match to see how this person matches my mother and therefore me. Okay. Now this, let's see. Oops. They're right there. I forgot about that circle. So that's the person we're going to be taking a peek at. Now let's take a look at that bottom match by using DNA Painter's shared centimorgan tool. This is an external tool that helps generate a predicted relationship based on those shared centimorgans. Now that match had 222 centimorgans with my mom. When I plugged that into the filter, DNA Painter gives me a list of probability relationships. If I scroll down, I'll also see a list of all the plausible relationships that include the 222 centimorgans within that range. It's not scrolling, is it? Okay, sorry. So there is that's the predicted relationships there that it will give you. So if I scroll down, there we go. I will see it highlights all the other plausible relationships that could include 222 centimorgans. My usual practice is to look for the ones closest to the number of centimorgans on average of the match to the right side of the chart. Those are your full relationships. I leave those half relationships, which are on the left, for later. So you can see the 222 centimorgans highlighted in black. 2C means second cousin. So let's go back and look at that unknown cousin. Now that we know where she might fit in, we can look at the shared matches with her. We see that she shares 222 and has a tree of 373 people. Now, I've already labeled the match with possible surnames or ancestors in common. When you click on the name, it's going to take you to the profile comparison. You want to click the tab that says Shared Matches. This is viewable on that only on that match profile page, and it's that third tab. My sister and I are listed at the top of the shared match page, followed by my aunt listed under me. This list will show the greatest to the least amount of shared centimorgans. Now, because I've already sorted my socks, I can already scroll down on that same page to see what other matches she and my mom might match with. The top two were my mother's first cousins that I had targeted tested. I had asked them for several months if they would test with Ancestry, and only after I had explained that I was trying to work out just who our shared ancestor's father was, did they finally say, sure. Additionally, I reached out and messaged each of these matches to ask how they might connect to my family tree. Eventually, I was able to determine that we all shared my great-great-grandfather, George Washington Scott. However, the initial look at their trees did not necessarily show me exactly how we connected, but I could see that my mother shared the Dorsey name in the tree as well as the Scott name. The light blue was our big surprise. Several people who only matched with a Chronister descendant eventually led me to proving that George Washington Scott's father was actually a Chronister man. Finally, the last part of the process is to put it all together with put the DNA information you have learned with the documents you already have connected to your tree. You take that information from both places to confirm and dismiss your findings. Now, let's see, I have to move my window here. Putting it all together, you have to recall inheritance is DNA is a fact of our existence. It's not going to lie. If you share DNA with someone, you will have at least one ancestor in common with that person. You want to identify. You need to know who also shares that match with you. By putting them into the right DNA groups helps you figure out where your common ancestor is. And don't forget to use your existing tree with records. These help you confirm your findings. DNA alone will not help you tell the tale of what happened. So with that, I would like to say thank you. You can email me at blameitonmyroots@gmail.com, or you can, and then if you have time or are able, I will share the link in chat, and Carla's going to email out the link for the Google Form survey for any feedback. Additionally, I'm going to hang out afterwards, and I will be more than happy to answer any questions. I'll be on mute and I'll turn off my video, but I'll be available for a Q&A session after the business part of your meeting is over. So thank you very much for allowing me to present today.